Hey guys, for today's video, I'll be analyzing Mualani's kit and going over her artifacts, weapons, teams, and constellations to help you reach your full potential. Starting off with her kit, her skill activates her Naito state and gives her 60 Naito points, meaning that she's going to be viable with myriad, the best DPS in the game. It also states that her movement speed and interruption resistance is increased, which will help her to both flee from and resist enemy attacks, which will help for both her defense and offense, since resisting enemy attacks is less time consuming than fleeing from them. It also states that when she makes contact with an enemy, she gains 1 out of 3 stacks of wave momentum and marks the enemy as marked as prey. Wave momentum increases her basic attack damage. The stacks are reset each time that she uses a normal attack, and when reaching full stacks, it enhances her next normal attack, which makes it so that Mualani wants to constantly make contact with enemies to gain more stacks, and she wants to only use her basic attack after she has obtained her max stacks. It also states that whenever Mualani uses a basic attack against an enemy that is marked as prey, up to 5 missiles fire at nearby opponents marked as prey. But if there are 3 or more enemies marked as prey, the missiles will only do 72% of the damage done had there only been 1 enemy, meaning that even though she does have AoE capabilities, she'll typically be far better in a single target environment. For her ultimate, she fires a homing missile shark that sucks at homing but does an immense amount of damage based off of her max HP as well, which is actually extremely powerful if it actually lands. For her talents, it states that when she uses her enhanced basic attack, 1 out of 2 puffers for every skill usage are created on the field, and when she picks them up, they give her 20 Naito points, increasing her fighting spirit regeneration for myriad and her skill uptime. For her other talents, it states that when a nearby party member triggers a Naito ultimate, she gains 1 stack that increases her ultimate damage by 15% up to 3 times, which incentivizes you to use Naito aligned characters to maximize her ultimate damage. For her traces, you're gonna want to prioritize leveling up her skill than her burst. Anyways, how do you actually apply all of this information? Well, you're gonna want to use Mualani's skill to come in contact with enemies 3 times. Then use her enhanced attack and pick up your puffer to regenerate more Naito energy. You're also gonna want to use your ultimate after all of your Natlin units have used their ultimates to not miss out on that potential 45% damage boost. Also, Mualani's optimal playstyle typically involves doing vapes, so make sure to apply pyro onto enemies before using her enhanced attack or ultimate. For her artifacts, considering that she's a Natlin main DPS, she'll obviously want the Obsidian Codex set because it gives her 15% damage dealt and increases her crit rate by a whopping 40% from just using her Naito state while being on the field. For an alternative, the Heart of Death set would be viable because it increases her hydro damage by 15% and increases her normal attack damage by 30% for 15 seconds after using her skill. For other alternatives, using 2-piece bonus sets that have either HP percentage, elemental mastery, or hydro damage bonus would be viable as well. Also, you could use the unfinished Reverie sets if you're using Mualani in a burn vape team, since it'll increase her damage by 50%. For her main stats, she's gonna want HP or EM for her sands, hydro damage bonus over HP for her goblets, and crit damage or crit rate over HP percentage for her circlet. For her substats, you're gonna want to prioritize getting crit stats, then HP percentage, then elemental mastery. For her weapons, Mualani's signature will obviously be her best because it increases her max HP by 20% and normal attack damage by 48% at R1. Not only that, but it provides a whopping 88% crit damage from her main stat, though keep in mind that this normal attack damage bonus will dissipate if you don't maintain the stacks by doing the vaporized reaction. For a 5-star alternative, really any 5-star weapon that gives a ton of EM from their main stats will be good enough. Still, Nuvilet's signature would also be viable because it increases max HP by 16% and has 88% crit damage from its main stat. For 4-star alternatives, the Sacrificial Jade would be powerful and her second best choice since it increases her max HP by 64% and EM by 80 at R5. Not only that, but it has a 36% crit rate main stat as well. For another 4-star alternative, the Witsif would be viable because it has a 33% chance to increase her damage bonus by 96% and another 33% chance to increase her EM by 480, while also having 55% crit damage as a main stat. For another 4-star alternative, the Ring of Yach would also be good because it increases Mualani's normal attack damage by up to 32% for 10 seconds after using her skill if she has 32,000 HP. It also has a main stat of 41% HP. For another alternative, the prototype Amber would be viable because it has a main stat of 41% HP as well. For her teams, Mualani is going to be good in Vape, Burn Vape, and Freeze teams. So for her Vape teams, she's gonna want at least one Pyro applicator like Changling, who is the best Pyro applicator in the game, Mavuika, who is the best Pyro sub DPS in the game, and is especially good for Mualani since Mualani can provide Mavuika with Fighting Spirit for her ultimate. Pyro Traveler will also be really good since his Pyro application is plenty for Mualani, and he can provide 15% damage dealt with a C1. Not only that, but he can also use the Cinder City sets for an additional 40% damage boost. For a Burn Vape team, she's gonna want one Pyro applicator and one Dendro applicator, with some noticeable picks being Nahida, who can provide a ton of Dendro sub DPS, Emily, who can do the same but even better considering that her whole kit revolves around burn, or Baishu, who can provide a decent shield. And for freeze teams, you're gonna need Escoffier because without her, pretty much every Hydro and Cryo character sucks in a freeze team. For the other slots, you can fill them up with either Rest Shredders like Zhongli, Kazuha, or Cylonen, who is probably Mualani's best teammates because Cylonen enables other supports to use Archaic Petra, gives one stack to Mualani's ultimate damage passive, and her long-lasting buffs really suit Mualani's long skill time. You can also use another Hydro character to obtain the Hydro Resonance HP buff, though I would recommend using a really good Pyro applicator if you're gonna do this, because vaping Mualani's attacks are more important than gaining the Hydro Resonance. You can also use Anemo characters like Sucrose since she has crowd control effects that help with marking enemies, she can help with Pyro application, and she can provide Elemental Mastery for Mualani's vapes. For freeze teams, Silali is also incredibly powerful since she can provide Shred, Elemental Damage bonus, and the shield, which is important for Mualani because of how often she's on the field for. For her Constellations, her C1 states that the damage dealt by her first enhanced basic attack that is used after Mualani uses her skill, and the Shark missiles it triggers is increased by 66% of Mualani's max HP, which is a massive upgrade to her DPS, even if it's only for her first enhanced basic attack and the missiles. It also states that in addition, while out of combat, Mualani's Night Soul's Blessing state consumes 30% less phlogiston and Night Soul points, which will be really helpful for exploration. For her C2, it states that Mualani gains 2 of Surfshark. For her C2, it states that Mualani gets 2 out of her skills stacks, and she will gain 1 more stack when obtaining a puffer, which will increase her enhanced basic attack usage by a small amount. In addition, whenever Mualani obtains 2 puffers within a single instance of her skill, she will recover an additional 12 Night Soul points over 2 seconds, which will increase her skill uptime by a small amount. For her C4, it states that Mualani regenerates 8 energy when obtaining a puffer, and her ultimate damage is increased by 75%, which is honestly a pretty good C4 since it lets her use her nuke ultimate more often, and it increases its damage even more. For her C6, it states that the damage increase from the C1 is no longer limited to being triggered once for every skill usage, which is a massive increase to her DPS because she can now consistently do 3 to 5 enhanced basic attacks whose damage is increased by 66% of her max HP. For my pulling recommendations, I recommend pulling for her R1 since her other options are worse both financial and meta wise. Then get her C1 since it's a big boost to her DPS, then get her C2 since it's a nice quality of life. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have anything to say, please leave it down in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it. Goodbye.